Welcome to 5 and 5 from the One Stop Co-op Shop, where we discuss 5 key elements of a game in about 5 minutes. I'm Michael Kelly, and today we're looking at Atlantis Rising, the 2nd edition from Elf Creek Games. Quick disclaimer that I was sent a review copy of this game. And additionally, Elf Creek has been generous enough to offer to send an additional copy of the game to a lucky winner. So if you live in the United States and are interested in potentially winning a copy, click on the link down below and send us your information. Quite a while back on the podcast, when we did our best co-op games of all time, Atlantis Rising made Colin's top 10 list. But at that point, I had never heard of the game and certainly didn't know that they were making a new edition. But I got a chance to meet the designers and play the game at PAX Unplugged. And now that I've played it a bunch more, was Colin right to rank it so highly? Let's find out and get to the list. We're starting with a pro, and that's the feeling of tension and excitement that the sinking island provides. If you've heard me talk about Forbidden Island on the podcast, you already know that I love having parts of the board disappear and ratcheting up the tension. And the same thing happens in Atlantis Rising, with cards sinking every turn from the Misfortune cards and also from the Wrath of the Gods. But here, instead of removing options for your characters to move to, it affects the probability of getting the resources you need to win the game. But the result is the same. You see the island disappearing before your eyes, and you think there's no way we're ever going to win this. It's a lot of fun. Our number 4, more of a mix, is related to the sinking island, and that's the Misfortune deck that causes the trouble. On the positive side, the deck is a great source of tension, as there are special cards in there that can really change what you do for the turn, and of course just the island sinking before your eyes. But on the negative side, if you have really bad luck and the exact wrong Misfortune cards come out, it can cancel tons of actions for the turn, sometimes wiping out even like half of the things you were going to do. This is good for tension, but not necessarily great for fun if you have that really bad luck. With number 3, we're back to a pro with the components that you need to build to win the game. The first nice thing about them is the variety. You have 20 of them and you use only 9 per game, so you're really going to see some different things each time you play. On top of that, each of them has a cool effect, and many of them have actions you can use over and over again that really change the entire landscape of your strategy. And on a final note, it's pretty satisfying to see the fruits of your labor as you construct this gate to evacuate your people, compared to a lot of games where you're just like defeating monster cards and not really seeing as much progress in construction. But we're back to a mix with number 2, and this is the one that could have the biggest impact on your enjoyment of the game depending on your playstyle and your group. More than half of the basic actions you'll take in the game require a die roll to actually accomplish anything, and in this game, while there is a lot of mitigation, there is no reward for failing a die roll. You just get nothing. Now on the positive side, this gives the game a lot of its strategy, a lot of its luck, and there's a ton of cool mitigation in both the player powers and the mystic energy you can use. But on the negative side, it just isn't that much fun to get nothing for one of your actions. Now, I will say this is much less minor in one-player games, or even 2 and 3, because you have more workers, and thus your actions are more dispersed. But in a 4+ player game, where you don't have as many people on the table, it's going to feel like more of a downer when you waste your turn. But we are going to end on a pro here, and that's the simultaneous action placement in the game. If you haven't heard me say this before in other videos or in the podcast, I'm a huge fan of simultaneous actions. And this game does it great on so many levels. First of all, it's a cooperative worker placement, which you don't see very often. But the tools of cooperation and the discussions you'll have as you place your workers are really great. You can work together to build the components, carefully making sure you have the right materials. A lot of the leaders have powers that boost everybody on their space. You'll be putting your workers together and being like, hey, can you get me a reroll over here? It just leads to great cooperation. And even in solo mode, where you don't have that good conversation, you have a lot of nice chances to carefully put down your workers and make some clever plays. When Colin first recommended this game, he was talking about the 1st edition, and looking back at the old design, I'm not sure I would have enjoyed that one that much. But for me, every change they made in the 2nd edition is an improvement, and this is a tight, quick, cooperative, fun worker placement game that I think has a great place on anybody's table. That said, I do caution groups that are really averse to having actions lost, because again, rolling the dice and the Misfortune deck might make you lose entire turns sometimes. And again, that problem is exacerbated at 4+ player count, so if you think that's the main way you'll always play, definitely keep that in mind and decide if that's going to be a make or break decision for the game. But for me, for the foreseeable future, for both solo and cooperative play, Atlantis Rising 2nd edition is a hit. Good gaming, everyone, and I'll see you at the next stop.